and Johnny Parlay with the facts. So relax, grab a drink, then let's kick back.
Welcome back, fans. Thanks for tuning in to The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Cella, sitting in with JDash again. We're going to talk a little wide receiver fantasy football for you today. Who you got for your top wide receivers, Dash?
Tier 1, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, Kelvin Johnson, Des Bryant, A.J. Green, Brandon Marshall, Jordy Nelson, and Demaryius Thomas, who already played.
I bet you everybody thinks I'm going to talk about Antonio Brown. I'm not. Talk about my boy.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not going to talk about the Steeler in this segment. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Just
Just shut it down.
You don't even, yeah, we need to restart this because I think you're confused. Megatron, if he plays this week, he's going to put up huge numbers. He's still questionable. He's been limited in practice all week, so it's still a little unknown. But they do think he has a better chance at playing than Reggie Bush.
I really like all these matchups these guys have. I play them no matter what, but outside of Julio Jones, everybody should have a really big week. Tier 2, the must-starts right now. Steve Smith Sr., Jeremy Maclin, Elshon Jeffrey, Randall Cobb, T.Y. Hilton, and Emmanuel Sanders, who already played.
Emmanuel Sanders was beast this week. If you had him in your lineup, good for you. 3 touchdowns against San Diego. I don't even think he caught 3 passes for the Steelers. If you follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread, I actually tweeted out a little joke here and there every once in a while, and I think Emmanuel Sanders bought a whole bunch of stickum with that signing bonus he got, because he didn't catch squat here in Pittsburgh, except for maybe some VD.
Oh, he said he needed Peyton Manning.
So I guess he needs a better quarterback for him to be able to actually catch the football. Just Peyton catch it for him.
He likes to lob it to him.
So throw him some ducks. Wah, wah.
T.Y. Hilton should blow up this week. At Pittsburgh, T.Y. Hilton has been a beast the past few weeks. He's been good all season. I see him killing Pittsburgh this week.
Yeah, any good wide receiver that comes into Pittsburgh puts up big numbers. On a positive note, our boy Ike Teasel BT Ellen back at practice this week. Limited, but he is back at practice.
T.Y. Hilton is going to kill him. Tier 3, Golden Tate, Mike Wallace, Sammy Watkins, and Kelvin Benjamin.
Mike Wallace, the 1/3 of the Fast Money crew that got broken up. He's having a better year down in Miami than he did last year. Him and Tannehill are building a better rapport. He's going up against Jacksonville. They give up the 13th most points to a fantasy receiver. He scored in all but one game this season, and he's at 8+ targets in 5 of 6 games. So I think you might even want to bump him up almost to the end of Tier 2 maybe if he has another big week.
He's getting there. All 4 of these guys are having excellent seasons. Kelvin Benjamin could be up in that list too. But Sammy Watkins had 9 catches, 122 yards, and 2 TDs last week. He looks great with Orton, and he has 57 targets over the last 6 weeks. This guy is turning into a beast, and I am playing him.
Well, we said at the beginning of the year that we were a little more down on Watkins than we were on Brandon Cooks in New Orleans because Cooks had the better quarterback.
Right.
And I'm not saying Orton's better than Breeze, but he's better than E.J. Manuel. So now that means Sammy Watkins shoots up the list because a receiver can't throw the ball to himself. You put a better quarterback in there, Watkins going to put up better points.
Tier 4, Michael Floyd, Andre Johnson, Vincent Jackson, who's questionable, but it does look like he's going to play, Mohamed Sanu, and Roddy White.
It pains me to say this. Michael Floyd is probably the better play in Arizona nowadays. He's stealing some catches away from our boy Larry Fitz. I love Larry Fitz.
Palmer looks great.
Palmer's playing good again. He's got that nerve all fixed up in his shoulder. They're going to be throwing the ball downfield in Bruce Arians' offense, so Michael Floyd's definitely a good play this week. He's going against Philly, who give up the 8th most points to a fantasy receiver. I mean, you got him, put him in.
If Vincent Jackson plays, I'm playing him. He has 35 targets over his past 3 weeks, which is a huge number, and he has 60 targets in 6 games. So this guy is getting the looks. Mike Glennon's a decent quarterback. I play him.
Yeah, Glennon's going to fall in. He'll put up points.
Tier 5, Julian Edelman, Denard Hopkins, Cecil Shorts, and Terrence Williams.
Cecil, eat my shorts. You think he's Bart Simpson's favorite player?
I don't know.
No, you always hated all my jokes. Julian Edelman, good play this week. He's going against Chicago. They give up the 17th most points to fantasy wide receivers. He's at 8+ targets in all but one game this season. Brady doesn't really have a lot of other targets out there. He's got Gronk, and we said we like Vereen coming out of the backfield a little bit better. LaFell is kind of LaFell on his face this year, so I don't really care about him. I'm going to say Edelman, best receiver they got, biggest target they got. Maybe not size-wise because Gronk's the size of my car, but you know what I mean.
Bernard Hopkins had a big bounce-back week last week versus Pitt. He tied for his season high in targets, and he has double digits in fantasy points in PPR in 6 of his 7 games. So he's been really consistent, and I keep playing him. Okay, tier 6. Kendall Wright, Doug Baldwin, Deshaun Jackson.
Thug life.
Larry Fitzgerald, Marquise Colston, Brandon Cooks, and Mike Evans.
If you're down to Colston and Cooks on your bench to play, you're not in terrible trouble yet.
Hey, I tell you what, you picked Colston last week to have a decent game, and he had 6 for 111.
6 for 111,
good job by you.
Yeah, that's because I know what I'm talking about. That's why it was a good job by me. He's had 10 targets, Colston, in 2 of the last 3 games. Cook's been a little more inconsistent with his targets. He had 41 in the first 5 games, but only 3 targets last week. It's scary to play 2 wide receivers from the same team, so I wouldn't recommend that. But if you have either one, they're going up against Green Bay. They give up the 11th fewest points to fantasy receivers, so I'm not sure. But I'd probably maybe pick Colston again out of those 2.
Yeah, me too. Doug Baldwin, he's still available in about half the leagues. He is Seattle's #1 receiver right now. He had 7 catches, 123 yards, and a touchdown on 11 targets last week. And he has a great matchup this week going at Carolina, who lets up the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So everybody needs to grab this guy real quick.
Yeah, no Percy Harvin equals more balls thrown to Doug Baldwin.
Tier 7. This is where it gets down to your favorite players. Oh. James Jones, Allen Robinson, Andre Holmes, Turi Smith, who's your favorite by far.
Oh, yeah.
Andrew Hawkins, and Brandon LaFell.
You know, I met my wife at Turi Smith's wedding. Do you know that?
Yeah. He's single, ladies.
Torrey Smith, he's going up against Cincinnati this week. They give up the 8th fewest points to fantasy wide receivers. He's had 3 TDs in the past 2 weeks, so his fantasy numbers have been there, but no more than 4 catches in any game this season. Mr. Steve Smith Sr. has kind of taken over the role of #1 receiver in Baltimore, but if you need somebody to spot start for a bye week or an injury, Torrey Smith is a good option for you.
Yeah, let's hope you didn't draft him too high. Allen Robinson has turned into Jacksonville's most consistent receiver, and he scored his first TD last week. He has 44 targets in his past 5 games, so he's seeing a lot of looks, and Bortles has to get better at some point. He looks bad right now, but he's going to get better, and Allen Robinson has been consistent through his struggles, so I like him. Tier 8, Jarvis Landry from Miami, Eric Decker, Pierre Garçon, and Brian Quick.
I know you love the Frenchman Pierre Garçon.
I hate that guy.
I'm more partial to Eric Decker. It's scary, though, because Geno Smith can't throw the football to save his life. Decker's going up against Buffalo. They give up the 9th most points to fantasy receivers. He's had 27 targets and 2 TDs in the past 3 games. The Jets' passing game is just awful, so you never know what you're really going to get. Let's just hope that Smith gets not hurt, but maybe just plays so bad they put Vic in, and then Vic starts lighting it up, so then Eric Decker's stock will shoot up. I'll look like a genius.
Like I said, I hate Garçon. This guy has big weeks, but I'm not going to play him to find out which weeks those are. And he has a tough matchup this week going against Dallas, who lets up the 4th fewest to fantasy wide receivers. And it even gets worse because now McCoy's a quarterback, and that's pretty scary to me. So I'm always sitting Garçon. Whether I think he's going to have a big week or not, whether the matchup says play him, I just don't like playing him. Tier 9, Justin Hunter, Percy Harvin, Jarius Wright, Devontae Adams out of Green Bay, and Jermaine Kearse out of Seattle, who looks like their #2 receiver now.
Percy Hartman's going to be huge for the Jets offense. He's the only guy with any talent other than maybe Decker. He's going to return punts.
Chris Ivory, man. Chris Ivory.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about receivers here, not just talking about running backs. Harvin's going to get the ball returning kicks, returning punts. I know kickoffs are pretty a moot point nowadays that everybody boots it out of the end zone. But they're going to run sweeps, screen passes. They're going to do everything they can to get the ball in Harvin's hands. So he's going to get a lot of touches this week.
Yeah, I have him in tier 9 right now. I didn't want to put him higher up the list because I have to see it first because the Jets' offense is such garbage. But he does have the upside, and he could shoot up this list in future weeks.
Definitely.
Davante Adams, you don't know what to expect out of him week to week. He has 2 TDs in his past 3 weeks, but he's going to be inconsistent in Green Bay's offense because they have Cobb and Nelson as their 1 and 2. But this is a great matchup at New Orleans, who lets up the second most of fantasy wide receivers. So I'd take a chance if I'm looking for a wide receiver and play Davante Adams. Tier 10, Lewis Murphy, who you love, Jordan Matthews, Robert Woods, Greg Jennings, Cordero Patterson, and Dwayne Bowe.
I'm going to have to go with my boy, Greg Jennings.
Put the team on his back, though.
He's going to put that whole team on his back, though.
He's going to have to.
Him and Patterson, it's a tough call to see who's going to get the catches. The targets are still there for Jennings, but obviously he's a little older, so the skills have declined a little bit. Patterson's got the better skills, but he's got to get more of the targets.
Yeah, actually, who I like out of the Minnesota receivers is Jarius Wright, who I had in tier 9. And this is a great matchup for all 3 of these guys.
Tampa Bay's garbage.
Yeah,
They give up the most points to fantasy wide receivers. I mean, they're just flat out garbage, their defense. So if you got any Minnesota receiver and Teddy Bridgewater's playing, money in the bank.
I sort of like Jordan Matthews this week. Arizona lets up the 4th most points to fantasy wide receivers, but they're actually better than that on the outside. It all comes over the middle of the field, and that's where you're going to find Jordan Matthews. The targets are there for him in the last 4 weeks, but the fantasy numbers haven't been. This is a good matchup. It's going to be tough for Riley Cooper and Jeremy Maclin this week, although I do think Maclin will have a good week. I think Jordan Matthews will too. Tier 11, Riley Cooper, Miles Austin, Jericho Cotchery, Chris Hogan out of Buffalo, Alan Hearns, and who's this last guy here?
My boy Martavius Bryant. Big game last week. 2 catches, only 40 yards, but a big touchdown. You think he needs to learn to run more than one route? I think as long as he knows how to run that one route, he's going to be just like Mike Wallace was his rookie year. He provides that deep threat. He keeps the safeties off the line of scrimmage, so it opens things up for the running game. He catches a fade pass real good in the end zone, in the red zone, excuse me. So I think if you're this far down out of this list, I really, really like Bryant. I think he's going to get more playing time, more targets, and more points.
I'm looking at this Chris Hogan guy here.
Is he Hulk Hogan's nephew or something?
He's white.
Brother.
He has 10 catches and a TD over his last 2 games, and that's with Orton at quarterback now. He had double digits in both of those games in PPR. Buffalo has better wide receivers, but they're still trying to figure things out with Kyle Orton, and Chris Hogan might be a guy that stays involved. You never know, so just keep an eye on him.
What you gonna do when Chris Hogan runs wild on you?
All right, that was terrible. 2 stashes here. Obviously, you want to grab Josh Gordon, like we said last week. If
you think Josh Gordon has a stash of his own? Huh? Get it? Hey, zing! I'm all over the place today, buddy. Just keep it going. Josh Gordon, Odell Beckham Jr. Who else you want to stash?
Well, Odell Beckham Jr. He does need picked up in a couple more leagues. He's on a bye this week. His stats aren't huge, but he does have 3 TDs in his past 3 games, and he's their number 2 receiver now with Victor Cruz out. He's not as good as Victor Cruz, but he's young and talented, so pick him up and play.
Hey, if Eli gets his head out of his ass, Beckham will start putting up some numbers. So we just got to hope for that aw shucks guy to just start chucking the ball instead of aw shucking the ball.
There it is.
All day. Well, that wraps up our fantasy wide receiver segment. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Dash, thanks for sitting in. I know you love this fantasy football stuff. You get all jacked up when we do this.
Oh, yeah.
You guys can follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Follow us on Facebook. Check out our YouTube channel, The Spread. Any fantasy questions you have, I always tell you, give us a call. Call into the show. Not really, because we don't have a call-in. Check us out on Twitter. Throw us your questions. Email us your questions. Throw some questions on Facebook. However you get them to us, we'll answer them.
Why don't you give him your iPhone number?
My iPhone number. Nobody wants to know my number. Nobody wants to
Well,
call
they
me.
can call in during the show. Then.
They get enough. They get enough of me listening now. Nobody needs to hear me any longer than this. Everybody,
Please believe.
you have a great night.